Solving climate change is easy. All we have to do is stop driving our cars, stop buying plastic products, and stop consuming things that has anything to do with the use of fossil fuel. How difficult could it be? Oh yes, don't forget about the food as well. Eat whatever that comes out of your backyard. You don't have a backyard? Well, get some from your neighbors then. None of you have a backyard to grow food because you live in a city? Well, too bad for you then. It is all about the environment. Don't be so selfish and think about the future. If solving climate change is this simple, why is it still a problem? Before we get into what challenge we have for solving climate change, we have to understand what is causing climate change. The main causes of climate change is the greenhouse gases that human emits into the atmosphere, which are the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. Carbon dioxide has the highest portion of the total gases. About 80% of all greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide. Despite being the most common greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide is not the most potent greenhouse gas. It is not the most effective gas to trap heat in the atmosphere, which is the direct cause of climate change. For instance, methane can trap 28 times as potent as carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Therefore, even when methane only takes about 10% of total greenhouse gases, it is still making a significant impact to the natural environment. There are often two topics that are commonly mentioned when it comes to environmental protection, which is to reduce fossil fuels and change up the diet. This is due to the fact that these two topics are the direct cause of carbon dioxide and methane emissions. Everyone is familiar with carbon dioxide, most commonly known greenhouse gas produced by burning fossil fuels, and everyone can see this from their daily basis just by looking at the cars. Of course, cars or transportations are not the only source of carbon dioxide, but it is one of the major sources. To keep things short and simple, most things that we do in our daily life is directly related to the use of fossil fuels. The cars you drive, the items you use, the food you eat. There is always some form of fossil fuels during somewhere to the things that you are consuming, and this applies to almost everyone in the world. For example, anything you buy from a store is probably shipped to the store by some kind of delivery truck, and that truck is most likely to be powered by fossil fuels. Also, the products that you are buying is most likely manufactured somewhere in a factory that have machineries that runs on fossil fuels as their source of power. And there are tons more of examples that I can give, but let's just take this one for now. Also, side note, this is also why it is so important to transition from non-renewable energy to renewable energy. This will be a topic for another day. What I'm trying to say is that even though the saying of just stop fossil fuel will solve climate change sounds overly simple and generic, it actually has some logical reasoning behind it. And I think this is why groups like this exist, even though all they do is to piss people off. If stop burning fossil fuels will solve climate change, why hasn't it been solved yet? The answer is really straightforward. Because stop using fossil fuels means to destroy and restructure the modern human society. Also, this world is just not that simple. Let's look at it from an average individual perspective. First of all, say goodbye to all your cars, unless it's an electric vehicle. Good luck going to work if you live in North America. Secondly, the grocery stores will become so empty as none of the food can be delivered by trucks. And then you realize that there is literally nothing to buy in any stores because everything is made with some sort of plastic, which is made from using fossil fuels. Also, depending on where you live, you might not even have electricity because it is generated by burning fossil fuels, which are the natural gases. None of the modern lifestyle can continue if we suddenly stop using fossil fuel, and we will go straight back to caveman era. Now, if we look from the fossil fuel corporation perspective, there is absolutely no way in any form to shut them down just because someone says so. Our economy is built on fossil fuels. Anything we do is directly related to fossil fuels. I don't think I have to say this, but fossil fuel corporations don't just make big money, they are the economy. And because of how closely everyone is tied with fossil fuel, people not associated with the corporations will defend the use of fossil fuels as being one of the most important part of their life. To be honest, it is very hard to argue against fossil fuels simply because it is just too good of a thing to use. There are quote-unquote good source of energy, easy to use. You can make a lot of things out of fossil fuels. It makes a lot of things in our life much more convenient, say for instance the single-use plastics, and they make people lots and lots of money. The only downside is of course how much burden it creates for the natural environment. Whenever we talk about the environment and climate change, the biggest challenge will always be how do we deal with the power of fossil fuel companies or corporations. These corporations are undoubtedly the number one enemy when it comes to solving climate change, especially when we live in a capitalist society where money holds the strongest power. That being said, if the public majority all agrees to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels, the corporations will certainly take a hit, whether that is from the decrease of fossil fuel sales or government policy changes. This, however, is very unlikely due to two factors. One is that people are not willing to give up whatever their current lifestyle is that has to do with fossil fuels, most common one being, again, driving their cars. Next, the corporation will do anything and everything to stop people from not using fossil fuels. The amount of power that fossil fuel corporations hold is not just how much money they have, but how much connections they have with other companies and the government. Also, like I said earlier, people will naturally side with using fossil fuels because they recognize how useful fossil fuels are, and whatever environmentalists are trying to push will probably affect their gas money, so they probably don't want that to happen. So, all in all, tie back to the very first question at the beginning. What are the challenges for climate change? I believe people's mindset and fossil fuels are a few key challenges, and both of them are interconnected because of the fossil fuel built society that we're living in. Although on paper, if we just stop using fossil fuels, climate change will be solved, as the main source of greenhouse gas will disappear. But that is simply not possible in the modern human society. We rely too much on fossil fuels, and fossil fuel corporations will not allow anyone to stop their fossil fuel consumption. In reality, there is just no way that we can just suddenly stop using fossil fuels. Hence why transitioning away from fossil fuel is so important. Climate change is a long-term phenomenon, and so is the development of human society. If we have the fossil fuel alternatives, many things can be changed. Specifically, energy transition from non-renewable energy, which is the natural gas, oil, and coal and such, to renewable energies like wind and solar. All the technologies are available, and many places like in Canada have already implemented the use of renewable energy. I think it is unrealistic to stop using fossil fuels completely. There are too much benefit and convenience that fossil fuels can bring for human, and there are many items that can solely be made from fossil fuels that are yet to have a decent alternative, such as medical supplies. Is it too late now to take actions? Maybe. Have we taken any actions yet? Yes. Is it going to the right direction? I think so. So is it all better than nothing? Absolutely, yes. That is pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Peace.